hello, and welcome to Dear Mama, You Got This podcast, a place where moms of all stages are welcome to come in and to get some advice, some encouragement. If you want to pull your hair out, this is what I want you to do. I want you to grab your favorite couch, your favorite comforter. Maybe you want a drink or you want some juice, whatever makes your fancy go fancy, and find you a corner and sit down and enjoy the next 30 to 40 minutes as we pour back into the mom that is you. This is not about your husband, about your partner, or even about the kids. This moment, this time is simply for us to pour back into the mom that you are and to remind you you are doing an amazing, amazing job. So let me first get started by welcoming my guest, who is renowned in all her rights and all her education, Miss Shayla Gray. So let me go ahead and welcome her to the scene.
Yes, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And I totally agree that this is such a well-needed topic, right? Pouring into ourselves, pouring into women. So beautiful. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk about it.
Thank you for the yes. This podcast is it's my baby, right? Like I have a baby, but this is my baby, and I'm
Mhm.
just passionate about reminding moms that motherhood, I tell people, is the most rewarding group to be in. But
Mhm.
Lord, it's one of the hardest,
Yeah.
and no matter whether you have a baby when you're in your 20s or when you have a baby in your 40s, motherhood will challenge you like nothing else you've ever accomplished
Yes.
before in life. And so
Yes.
I want to do you the honor of reading your bio, if you don't mind, so that people know that you got some stuff behind your name, that you're not just
I
you're not
appreciate
just
you.
talking, but you know what you're talking about. No problem. So, Miss Shayla Gray is a licensed marriage and family therapist in both Virginia and Maryland. She has over 10 years' experience working in various mental health settings, including private practice, the community service boards, crisis facilities, and community-based services. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Virginia State University. She earned her master's from Liberty University, specializing in marriage and family therapy. Her postgraduate certificates from North Carolina Central University in autism education and marriage and family therapy. Listen, y'all, she is a Harvard Medical School trained in treating couples. She is trained in eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing, also known as EMDR. Using a collaborative approach, her goal is to provide a safe space to begin working towards change. She specializes in relationships and working with trauma. She is committed to excellence and providing cultural competent mental health services to the community. Again, let us welcome Miss Shayla.
Thank you. Thank you for the red carpet.
So, in your experience as a marriage and family therapist, what are some of the biggest relationship shifts you see with couples after they have a baby?
Right, right. Well, I think the biggest shift is just the adjustment to the transition, right? So, additionally, I just first want to start with this is something I'm so passionate about, right? Relationships and the inner working of relationships, because we as human beings, we thrive off of relationships, and especially positive relationships. So, from my experience, what I've seen, it's huge couples dealing with different transitions in their relationships, whether it be transitions to becoming parents, transitions to entering new phases in their lives, transitions to different stress variables that are going on. All of these things have an effect on the relationship. And those effects can be both positive and negative. So when you talk about, becoming parents, that's huge because there's so many things that pours into that category.
Absolutely.
Having to have enhanced responsibilities, whether that be household, financial, within your relationship, and also, having another person introduced into your dynamic. If it was just the two of you, or if it was just whether you have multiple people in your unit, having another person that needs something from you being introduced into the space, that transition in and of itself can be extremely difficult to navigate.
Do you think that, for the viewers, if you notice at the bottom of the screen, I just added Miss Shayla does have her own private practice, and I put it down at the bottom of the screen for those who are watching. So just so you have that for your information as well. But I wanted to ask, do you think that the transition is harder when you have a baby first? And like, for example, I was married in August and we found out we were expecting in September. So my
Uh,
first year of marriage, I was a new mom with a I never want to say I had a bad pregnancy, but I had a very hard pregnancy. Do
Right.
you think that when a person gets married and they get pregnant right away, that it aids in that transition being harder? Would it be better if we waited, like say 6 months or 3 months, if it's possible? Like, what's your
Right.
thoughts on that?
Right. So, of course, my whole theory is individuals are expert in their lives, right? So we know what we need. But I will say that research does support that preparation for pregnancy is helpful when it comes
Okay.
to aiding in these transitions
Mm,
and also managing relationship satisfaction when you're doing that. So it's not to say that, you have to have X, Y, and Z done before you have a child. But it is to say that there are certain things that couples should discuss prior to having children. And that may be, different things such as what are roles and responsibilities going to look like when the child gets here?
no,
What are going to be some of the stressors that we may face as a couple when the child gets here? Because when that child is here and they are
absolutely.
demanding and they don't care about, any other preparation work that needs to come along with securing their stability. And so
Absolutely.
it's helpful to make sure that those discussions are being had. Now, when those discussions happen, that's totally up to, the individuals and the couple, but research does support that relationships actually are individual couples are more satisfied in their relationships when they have those type of discussions prior to becoming parents.
If you could list your top, let's say your top 5 misconceptions that couples have about their marriage after the baby, what would
Uh,
they be?
I would first say that we have to get rid of the romance or
Mm,
the intimacy, right? I think that would be number one. Number two is that each individual has to take on everything and do everything themselves. Number three would be that there can never be an understanding, not an understanding of the mother or the father's role or vice versa. Four would be that you can't have any time for yourself. And five would be that your relationship is going to be in this state of disarray or that it's going to be troubled by introducing the child into the system.
How do you, and you mentioned this a moment ago, you said preparing. How
Mhm.
does a couple, and maybe it's not a couple, maybe it's a career woman who spent her years building her career and now she's in her 40s and she wants to have a baby or she's thinking about having a baby and she doesn't have a partner per se.
Right,
So she's looking to do this on her own.
right.
How would she prepare for a baby? I know the medical side of it, like going to the doctor and all that, but how would she prepare emotionally, for the changes? Because I'll say that I was not prepared. Although I thought I was, I really believe like I'm ready to be a mom. It hit me like a
Mhm.
ton of bricks.
Right.
And it's definitely had an impact on my marriage. So how do you prepare?
Yeah. So I will say when we desire something or we want something, it is not uncommon for individuals to maybe miscalculate steps or skip steps, right? And so what that preparation would look like would be acknowledging that you have maybe this feeling or this desire to bring a child into the world to engage either in this journey by yourself or with a partner. And that preparation would look like that acknowledgement and then asking yourself, now that I know I have this feeling, I acknowledge that, I have this desire. What do I need to set myself up for the best possible version of what this could mean in my life, right? So if I desire to be the best mother that I can be, what needs to happen in order to do that? Do I need to make sure that I am securing um, a job that allows me to be able to work from home when I need to, or that allows me to be able to have the weekends off? Or if I can't do that, do I need to have a support system that can allow me to have some flexibility in my schedule? Do I want to be present academically for them? Do I want to homeschool them myself? I think there's a plan that has to be created based off the vision that you have for yourself and parenthood. And I think that planning needs to happen despite if you are a single parent deciding to do this journey on your own, or if you're doing it as a couple.
Absolutely. What, if any, red flag? So let's say my husband and I, we've decided we're ready to have a baby, right? We want to start trying. Or we've had a baby and now we're struggling to find us. We're struggling to
Uh,
find that connection, that was once there. We're struggling to be able to communicate. I'm exhausted because I'm, as the mom, I'm carrying 90% of the responsibility of the new baby.
Hmm.
If I'm breastfeeding, then that's a whole nother beast by itself. So
Right.
how do we reconnect? How do we what first of all, what red flags should we look for and say, oh wait, maybe we need to step back for a second and reinvest in us? 'Cause I tell people all the time, kids grow up and they will eventually leave the house. And
Right.
you want to be like, I don't know you. I don't,
Right.
we've been married for 30 years, but I have no idea who this person laying beside me is. So
Right.
what's some red flag that in your experience you've seen that we can kind of be aware of
Right.
when it comes to that?
Well, the first red flag I would say is if you notice that the connection between you and your partner is drifting or is decreasing. And so that could be, both physically, intimately, and emotionally, right? So, in a sense of you all are spending less time together, you feel less supported by your partner. You feel like you can't talk to your partner. You feel like you don't connect or you're not able to relate to your partner in any way. Those are some signs that, hey, something is going on right now. So I need to put some attention to this a little bit. And I think that's done by, I'm going to introduce this word because it's one of my favorite words,
Okay.
introducing a boundary, right? Some boundaries need to take place. And when I say a boundary in a sense of there needs to either be some prioritization that needs to happen or there needs to be some needs that need to be mentioned there. And that's how those boundaries are created. And what that could look like may mean that I know we're juggling being parents, we're juggling working, we're juggling, going to the gym and doing what we like to do individually, but where's the us time, right? Are we having dinner together, even if it's at 10 o'clock at night, right? Are we watching a show together? Are we putting our phones down and being present for each other for 30 minutes a night or 30 minutes in the morning? Establishing that boundary that although this has happened, right? We are becoming parents, we need to be a couple as well. And that is important. So we are going to prioritize that. And that's the boundary.
How do how do a mom that's already exhausted in her role as mom, as wife, as daughter, especially if she has aging parents, and so she's taking care of the parent. How do she a set a boundary or set boundaries, and then
Mhm.
how does she? I don't want to say ask, but how does she define or convey that boundary? And what should
Mhm.
she do if the boundary is not? No, they crossed the boundary.
Yeah. So first of all, I can totally relate to this with having a 5-month old, myself. Trying to figure out how to pour into yourself and have self-care can be extremely exhausting. It can be overwhelming. You're trying to navigate just all the changes. You're trying to navigate the responsibility. And you're in some cases also trying to navigate the guilt of having that time for yourself. And so I think the boundary starts with you recognizing every individual has a capacity, right? And when that capacity is met, we can't show up as best versions of ourselves. And so setting that boundary means giving yourself permission to know that you earned that break. You earned that stepping away, stepping outside, allowing the sun to hit your skin. You earned that 15-minute shower at the end of the day, undisturbed by yourself. You earn that ability to be able to sit down and have a meal. And sometimes it could be hard or seem hard if there's so much going on and you don't have the support to make that happen.
Absolutely.
But thinking about when can you fit that in, right? Can that be fit in the middle of a nap time? Can that be fit in the middle of a school day? Can that you take that break that your job gives you, but you want to work to make sure that you're meeting a quota, right? When can you fit in that time for yourself? Because I think once you're able to pour into yourself, you're able to create the capacity to then maintain and create a boundary. We keep the boundaries when people push them. We just reiterate the importance of it, and we don't show flexibility in that, right? So an example of that would be if you have a job that provides you the opportunity to take a 15-minute break and a 60-minute lunch. Why are you skipping over that break? Why are you skipping over that lunch to meet a quota, right? Setting that boundary saying, I'm going to take this time for me and the work will be there when I get back. And that's okay.
I think that's the struggle. I know as a new mom, my son is only 10 months.
Mhm,
I am very hands-on, right? I
mhm,
am the one picking him up from daycare, taking him to daycare. I'm the one who does all the 95%, 99.9% of his feedings,
right,
bathing, putting him in bed at night. It's all me. And
right,
I feel there are times when, as a mom, I feel guilty when I'm tired, right? I feel guilty when he's crawling all over me, or he wants to be with mommy. He's a mommy's boy already at 10 months. And so, but I'm exhausted because I worked a 10-hour day, and then I've
mhm,
driven 45 minutes to pick you up, and then 45 minutes to come back home.
yeah,
And so I'm exhausted. But
right,
you're 10 months and you don't know that. And
mhm,
so there are times when I just feel guilty. How does a mom be okay with saying I'm tired, or I need just 10 minutes to decompress,
right,
especially when I say, like, I prayed for my son, right? Like, I was told I couldn't have kids, I wouldn't be able to have kids, and then I got pregnant. And so there are times when I'll get like, I'm exhausted, and I go, well, you can't be exhausted because you prayed for this. Remember, you asked God for this. And so I feel bad for saying I'm tired. I feel bad for saying I'm exhausted. I feel bad for saying I'm overwhelmed. How
mhm.
does a mom deal with that, and how does she get to a place where she's okay with saying that?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it starts with reminding yourself that both can exist, right? It doesn't have to be a one or the other. It can be, I prayed for my daughter and I'm tired, right? I prayed for my daughter and I desire to have some time to myself, and that's okay. I think, just giving yourself grace around it, grace and understanding by just changing the language of how you're internalizing it is so important, because a lot of times we think that we have to make a choice, right? And both can exist, right? You can be tired and overwhelmed and then desire to have that time for yourself or desire to have a change. And I think when you can start making that language, then you start giving yourself internal permission to make some changes when you can, right? And recognizing it's hard, especially if you don't have the level of support that you want to have, or you're doing it on your own. It's hard, but it gives you the capacity to be able to capitalize on those chances to take some time when you have them without
Absolutely.
feeling the guilt, right?
Absolutely. So let's bring in the romance side, because
O-
yes,
Okay.
how do if I'm already tired and I'm already
Mhm,
wore out,
mhm,
will you talk about now? And I like using me for example because I feel like people get the best example when I use me. But I was a lingerie type of girl, right? Like
mhm,
I wore lingerie, or even before I got married, I wore lingerie. Now,
right.
if I put on a clean T-shirt to go to bed, I feel like I've done something right. If I get
Right.
in bed, I don't have spit up on me. I don't have my son has a really good aim to be. I don't have my son's pee on me or his bottle didn't spit on me. I feel
Mhm.
like I'm doing good. But
Yeah.
I also feel like I've done my husband a disservice because he's used to this, yeah, like, yeah, but I'm tired.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how,
I get
how
it.
yeah.
Again, I totally understand. Again, with having a 5-month old, it's hard, right? It's hard to try to juggle your new role as a parent, and then to try to fit in, okay, what does it look like for me and my significant other to maintain the level of intimacy that is
Mm,
important for the relationship? And I think, one way of looking at it is to recognize there is a change that's happening right now in this season in the relationship, and having a conversation with your partner about, the fact that this change has happened and what can we do together to make sure that our romance is not lost. Right. Even if it's something small, does it mean that I am giving you a good morning kiss when you wake up instead of jumping right into want to get coffee or whatever the routine is, right? That acknowledgement that you're here, you exist, you're important. I think a lot can come by you just showing up. A kiss, a hug, a greeting is a way of connecting. So trying to talk about it and talk about how you can find those moments of connection, I think is extremely important.
What about, and this is not me at all, because I feel like my sex drive increased with
Uh-huh.
getting pregnant and even after. I don't feel like I decreased at all. but I feel like my husband's did. And so that's a level of contention at times because I'm like, first of all, I'm in my early mid 40s. I'll be 45 in a couple of weeks. So
Mhm.
I'm like, yes, no, I'm happy. What do you do when one partner is like, yay, yay, yay for the romance, and one partner is like, no, I'm good. Let's just
Yeah,
worry about taking care of the baby. Let's just worry about make sure that these bills get paid. Let's just make sure that we. What do you do, and how for the mom? If the mom is the one who's like, I really really want it, how does she not assume that it's rejection that
right,
her
right,
spouse is giving her or her partner is giving her,
right.
as opposed to him just be like he's tired or he may be overwhelmed or she may be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
How do I navigate that fine line between is me he's rejecting or more so of it's yeah, how do we do that?
Yeah. So I think that the key or a very beneficial thing to do is to have a conversation about it. And again, I know it may seem easier to say than to do, but to inform your partner that this is how I'm feeling, right? I'm feeling like I either A, have a higher sex drive and a meeting more intimacy, more physical touch, more physical interaction during this time, or it's the opposite, right? I feel overwhelmed. I just feel completely drained to where at the end of the day, I don't have anything else to give. Bringing that into the space together with your partner so that there's an acknowledgement of what is happening. You both can be on the same page about that. And when that acknowledgement is there, you can start to brainstorm together what needs to happen so that maybe we can find more of a balance of what we're both looking for here, right? Do you need to feel more rested so that you can feel more interested or more able to engage intimacy? And if so, what can I do to support you? Is there a task or something that I can take on that would replenish you in that way? Or, if there's a higher sex drive, I know that you desire, intimacy or sex 5 times a week, but what if we're able to get to three? Or what if we're able to get to one? Or what if I'm able to work through, what I'm feeling mentally and emotionally? You give me a couple weeks to do that, and then we revisit this conversation, right? I think having the conversation and the dialogue about it is so important because then what that does is it helps decrease assumptions, which lead to those negative thoughts, the blame, right? The guilt, all of that. I think that's, a good starting point.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching, Shayla has a actual workbook that talks about this very thing. And so I just put it up on there with the link. Everything her website has a link, all of social medias have the links for them. So I want to make it as easy as possible for those that are watching. If you want some more information or you want to find a good resource, I want to make sure that you have access to this Harvard Collisioner, I'm not pronouncing that right, to be able to get the resources that we need, right? Because I
Right,
know that, like I said earlier, motherhood is definitely a desire for a lot of people, but it's a lot of work, and we want to make sure that you have everything you need to do it to the best of your ability, not basing it off of what someone else has done, because everybody's journey in motherhood is not the same.
right,
And what worked for one mom may not work for this mom, or what worked for that marriage may not work for this marriage. And so sometimes we have to stop. I tell you what time in life you have to learn how to race like the racehorses do, meaning that they wear blinders. They don't look to the left or to the right. They're just
yeah,
focusing and going straight ahead because I can't worry about what my neighbor and her husband are doing. That might not fit my household and what me and my husband are doing. So with
yeah,
that being said, what are some small daily habits that couples can implement, whether they have small kids, teenagers, or they're empty nester to help them stay connected and reclaim that romance and reclaim just being able to see each other. And I mean not necessarily physically see each other, but see
hmm,
each other.
right, right. So one thing I think could be just a good starting point is a greeting, right? Starting your day with a greeting and ending your day with a greeting. For example, for me, I know my husband goes into work at 5:30, right? I am sleep during that time, but what I remember is he always gives me a kiss good morning and says love you. Right. That is my greeting, my interaction with him in the morning. And that happens even without us being able to engage in a conversation. So that greeting when you start the day and at night, I think is important. The next thing is trying to prioritize your relationship in the neat way of, I always encourage many of the couples that I work with to set aside time to just to discuss the relationship, to acknowledge the relationship at least once a week. Call it a weekly meeting, right? And during this
I like
time, you talk about things that you appreciate about your partner, things that you are celebrating that's happened, that's gone well between the two of you, and even some things that you need from your partner. So have that set time where you know that's going to happen, and prioritize that. And then work to, be open with one another. Discussing feelings can be difficult, and I understand that. But think about, what is needed to create a space where you all can talk about things that you need and talk about how to get those needs met through, planning and conversation. I think that those are all important ways to try to be connected. And also, the last thing I'm going to mention is trying to limit your distractions when you
that.
are with your partner. It's not uncommon for us to be on a date night and be on our phone, to be working or checking emails. That's important. It's important to, stay connected and to work. But when you are prioritizing your relationship through a date or an interaction with your partner, really lean into that, right? Lean into that without distractions. Give them your undivided attention for the time that you are with them, just to see if that's helpful.
And when you say distractions, what do you can you be more specific in what would be considered a distraction?
Right. So a distraction could be, for example, you are on a date night, but you are taking a work phone call, right? And so you have 30 minutes set aside to have a date lunch with your partner, and 15 of those minutes you are on a phone call. So your partner's eating alone or eating in
Mm.
silence without your conversation, right? That may be a distraction. Or if you all are taking a long walk in the park and you are on your phone, you are not then engaging with your partner. And so, in some instances, it can be helpful just to be in someone's presence, but to really have the full experience, there oftentimes needs to be an interaction there, and that can't happen if you are interacting with other things or other people when you are trying to interact with your partner.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our last two questions. If a couple is feeling disconnected, when should they start to try to rebuild that bond?
Immediately, immediately. I would say do not wait, right? If you are noticing a change in your relationship, that is a good indicator that something needs to be different, right? And I'm a firm believer that every relationship, there's continued work, right? There is a give and take that happens in every relationship. Every relationship requires work. It is something you have to continue to pour into in order for it to work. And so if you notice that that disconnect is happening, there's something that needs to be addressed there. And it may not be something huge, it could be something that could be addressed maybe through an acknowledgement or a conversation. But I would say that it is important to try and lean into that as soon as you notice. And if you are not sure how to do that on your own, looking for support and guidance around how to do that, but not just ignoring it. Really try to address it when it comes up.
And that kind of leads me into my next question. For couples who realize they need additional help, what should they look for in a marriage therapist or counselor or coach, or what things should they look for when that's needed?
So I think each individual is different, right? I think you have to kind of know what you need as an individual to be able to move forward, right? And I say that because some people may know, but some people may struggle with that, and that's okay. I think the first thing that is important is to have safety in the therapy space. And when I say safety, I mean you feel comfortable expressing how you feel in the therapy space so that there can be some conversation and some planning around how to move forward. And so, what ground rules need to be established so that that safety can be created. For me, I typically start my sessions with couples with really defining what those ground rules look like. And some examples of that can be, one person talking at a time so that the other person is actively listening, as opposed listening to understand, as opposed to listening to reply, right?
Absolutely.
And the next thing is that there's no name calling in the space unless it's an agreed upon nickname that you all have for one another. But Those are examples of some ground rules that I start sessions with couples to try to create a safe space for the work to start or the work to continue.
Absolutely. I would like to. This has been a really, really good conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it because I want you to come back
Yes, of course.
and talk some more as this is beginning for me. You were actually my very, very first guest on the podcast. So I want to thank you for your time and your expertise. And I just want to thank you for being open and helping mothers be the best version of themselves. Because I feel like this is needed. This environment, this safe environment, talk about all aspects of motherhood. And
Right.
like you said, safe, right? Where there's no
Yep.
judgment, right? There's
Yep.
no preconceived notions, there's no right or wrong answers, just mothers trying to be and doing the very best that they can. So I want to sincerely say thank you. For those that are watching, please make sure that you're following us on social media. We're on YouTube. Of course, we're on YouTube because you're watching us on YouTube. But make sure you hit the subscribe button and you subscribe. We are on Instagram. We have a private Facebook group so we can keep it safe where you are empowered to post your questions and your concerns. And if you have a follow up to this video and you want me to reach out to Miss Shayla, I can do that. If you want me to put you in, give you direct contact with her, I can do that as well. She is local. She is in the DMV. She's in Maryland and Virginia. And so you don't have to do this journey alone. One of the big things that I did when I had my son was I felt like I was by myself in my struggle. I'm an older mom and I feel like I really struggled in that area. All my friends, kids are either out the house or they're like, middle school or high school. And so being a new mom at 44 was a lot. And I felt like I was in this journey or in this bubble by myself. And so the point of Dear Mama, You Got This is to create a community where you don't have to feel like that, where you are encouraged and empowered to be the best version of you, but to know that no matter what you're doing, dear mama, you got this and you are rocking motherhood. And I don't care what anybody else tells you. So thank you for watching. We will see you next Wednesday and you all have a great, great day. Again, Shayla, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate you. You all have a good one. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye bye.